Peoples Day. Much to unpack there as to what is Indigenous Peoples Day, but I'm happy to know we're acknowledging it and the people that are really originally from these lands. And we'll talk about that another time, but happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Yay! And outside of America, yet affecting us gravely. What happened this weekend in Israel, in the Gaza, the attack from Hamas? I cannot imagine anywhere where we can be comfortable with what has taken place. The lives that have been lost. I don't care about the politics. I care about the people. And you may remember years ago, I said, no matter who the mother is, no matter her racial or ethnic makeup, when she loses a child, the gut wrenching wailing, the pain that goes with that. And if we could all just stop for a moment and focus on the fact that we're killing each other and it's not going to get us very far, it's just going to be more war, generation after generation, day after day of no peace. So we're praying for the whole region and we're praying for all people in the Middle East. I pray that Hamas and those who are engaged there find it in their hearts to pause. I pray that the people of Israel pause and everybody starts thinking about what happens. An eye for an eye just leaves everybody blind. And we're just about there now. So let's back up. We're still praying for the people in Ukraine. We're hoping that common sense will prevail in that whole situation, because all these wars and rumors of wars and pestilence, natural disasters, maybe we want to check ourselves, but hey, that's another conversation. You're watching Living Life Authentically, and I'm Natalie B. McKenzie. And today we have someone I have waited a long time to have join us. And some of you, all of us know who David Boulay is, the Michelin star chef. He referred to her as the world's first triple threat in food and medicine. She's here today, ladies and gentlemen. She's Harvard-trained psychiatrist. She's a professional chef, graduating her culinary school's most coveted award, and a trained nutritional specialist. She is also an author. More importantly, she is a wonderful, gentle, kind soul. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today founded and directs the first hospital-based nutritional psychiatry service in the United States. She's the director of nutritional and lifestyle psychiatry at Mass Gen Hospital in Boston. She's director of nutritional psychiatry there, and she is also on faculty at Harvard Medical School. Who am I talking about, ladies and gentlemen? None other than Dr. Uma Naidoo. Help me welcome Dr. Uma.
Hi, Natalie.
Hello, hello, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm
Thank
so
you.
excited.
I'm really happy to be here.
Wow. And that beautiful smile never, it always warms my heart. I am glad you're with us, and we're so glad that you could join us. Dr. Uma Naidoo. Okay, I'm going to do something we almost never do. I'm going to start here. A Michelin star chef? When did you find time to do
So
that?
I know this is actually confusing. David Boulay is the Michelin starred chef, and he referred to me as the first triple threat. So I didn't have the opportunity yet, Natalie. Maybe you and I can get together and do that to become a Michelin star chef. But it was about putting together the work that I loved to do in the nutrition space, because doctors don't talk to us about our food and they're not trained to, and mental health, you know, wherein lies my heart to help people, and then the culinary arts. So
Well, we're going to work on that because it's out there, so we may as well we may as well just make it happen. So
yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Uma. One of the things we do here at The Whole Woman is we celebrate accomplishments. We
Yes.
celebrate all things that we get done, but we really want to celebrate the person, and we want to help people know how they can get from where their starting point is to
Yes.
where someone like yourself is. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Your name is unique and beautiful.
Thank you.
We're celebrating Indigenous people. You look like you
Yes,
could be an Indigenous
it's
person.
true.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yes. Thank you. So my name is actually Sanskrit. I'm Indian or South Asian by ethnicity, but I was actually born, Natalie, and raised for the early part of my life in South Africa during apartheid.
Mm,
And I'll share with you in a few moments how that evolved into sort of my food beliefs and more of that. But early on in my life, one of the ways that my parents, who really didn't have the chance to advance their lives or their careers beyond the kind of the oppression of apartheid. They, when I had the opportunity to study overseas very early in my life, they celebrated that. And
mhm,
even though it took me very far away from them, I moved to Boston to study. But it was, they reinforced that education was a way out from these types of situations
mm,
because many people don't realize that in South Africa, if you were not white, then there were only sort of two lanes, and they were just the world. The way that things were segregated was actually pretty devastating as a child. I fortunately was raised in a family where my parents worked hard and we had resources, but the segregation was pretty significant, and I'll tell you that it really impacted my view on how I think about food and the fact that people really need to have choices around things. And I don't buy into this eat this not that culture that we live in. So
speaking of apartheid, how did that, the ignorance outside of South America, and especially on this side of the world,
mm,
you being of Indian descent,
yeah,
were you considered simply non-white,
yes.
or was it a
Yes.
tiered system?
It was varied. There were things that it was tiered in the sense. So there was black and there was not black, or there was black and there was white. What am I saying? And then with if you were not white, you were either black or you might have been Indian or you might have been some variation of that, which is when you think about it, it's kind of ridiculous. But the reality was that people who were not white had fewer resources. So I think that that's not always well understood in the world. Um, and I think that one of the things I'll tell you that I sort of kind of processed as I matured and became an adult, Natalie. I'm a firm believer, in psychotherapy and in counseling to support people's just their own development. It could be life coaching, whatever appeals to you. But one of the things I realized was that in order to succeed for the first part of my life, I really almost suppressed that background. I needed to get ahead, and I was studying and I was doing all the stuff in culinary school and all of that. But I've come to understand that when you grow up and you judge by the color of your skin and you're a child and you don't really know why, or you can't really tell, like, why would that matter? Because you can't figure out those things when you're that young. One of the things that made me feel very strongly about food is I feel that people need to be able to make a choice about the food that they eat, and that should not be a decision that's dictated to them. So I do not believe in the food politics in this country, and by that I'm referring to even doctors or influencers who say never eat this, don't eat that, you have to eat one food group or another, because I think that any diet can be healthy if it's tweaked with the right intelligence and knowledge behind it to help you eat the best piece of steak or the best plant based meal or somewhere in between. But it comes from that root. Um, in my own background, where that trauma and that pain turned into something that I feel very strongly about. So even though I was actually raised and still am a pure vegetarian, that was just my family is Hindu and they're vegetarian, yet my husband's family eats anything. I just feel that people need to have a choice. And so when people ask me, why I feel that way, even though I'm vegetarian, it comes back to that
Yeah, autonomy, never
autonomy.
losing that
Autonomy.
autonomy. That
Yes.
is so very interesting because, having spent time with you, I observed the vegetarian practice
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have it all, enjoy it all practice, and the happy, the happy medium and convergence of the two, where you just do your thing and he does his and everybody has a great meal. So that's beautiful to know that really is
Thank you.
driven by your firm belief of holding on to autonomy and ensuring others have autonomy over what they do. That's interesting. Now, Dr. Nadu, how do you make it out of an apartheid South Africa into Boston, Massachusetts, to Harvard University? That is not an average transition for
It's
someone with limited access.
this is very true. But it was actually an opportunity that my then fiance, now husband, obtained, and that we made a decision. So we both, very young. Although, like we always say, and you've heard this, Natalie, we still consider myself 25. But we had this opportunity young, and we were dating at the time, and he wanted to spend some time overseas, and he applied for a fellowship. We contacted the hospital, and he was awarded a fellowship. So we made the decision to move our wedding forward and to do this together. And so when we moved, he really pioneered the way by getting this fellowship. And then I had to come here and with his support kind of navigate the system. And I did by first starting off in research at the hospital, where I am now an attending and run my own clinical service. But way back then, I started off in research, and from there we have to actually take exams and stuff like that, and then apply for the programs. And I was fortunate enough, with perseverance and resilience, and still going back to that focus on the education piece, to get into a Harvard program. And from there, really built the rest of my career. But that was a big stepping stone for me.
Let's talk about the career that we see today and how you were able to make the decision that, well, first, why psychiatry?
Mental health was just always extremely important to me. I felt that people needed to be heard. I love working with people. But my heart has always been in mental health. I felt that there was a lot of suffering in the world. And if my talking and understanding the position of people and helping them through therapy, through whatever the mechanism was, now it's nutritional psychiatry, that was important to me. As it turns out, we're now in a mental health crisis, and it's ever more relevant. So I'm glad that it's been brought forward, but there's still so many people suffering. But alongside that core importance of where I felt mental health was the fact that nutrition was important. I grew up in a family, you and I have talked about this, eating delicious food, grandmother and aunts and older cousins who cooked, and being surrounded by really whole foods, foods that were either obtained from the garden or cooked fresh. And that was very much entrenched in me. And for the first time when I moved to the United States, I remember seeing donuts for breakfast, which in my culture and growing up were tea time treats, and seeing Pop Tarts, which were these convenience foods that I didn't realize was so terribly unhealthy. And so it was really a culture shock. But with all that said, these things definitely influenced me. And when I was first becoming a prescriber in psychiatry and learning about medications, I realized that here, my mentors are teaching me about all these horrible side effects of the medication. Now, they may be very important for some people because some people actually desperately need those medications to even keep alive because they may be so severely depressed. But they also have side effects, as do medications for chemotherapy, for example.
Mhm.
But no one was asking individuals whether they were exercising, what they were eating, what their lifestyle measures were that could counterbalance or counteract those side effects. And I thought that was a huge gap, which led me to explore the path that I'm in now.
Wow. So, one of the reasons I'm so excited you're with us right about now is we're talking about domestic violence this month. We're
Yeah.
talking about ADHD and ADD awareness and what's happening with our youth and our adults
Yeah.
that might be experiencing some of these symptoms and living with ADHD,
Right.
anxiety.
Yes.
And then we later on will talk about bullying. And
Mm.
all things I know fall under mental health.
Yeah.
what are
Yeah.
some of the most basic things that you think are important as a professional for a healthy mindset, for coping in
Mm.
today's world? At the start of the show, we talked about, the tragedy that's happened overseas,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
we're inundated by it. But in the meantime,
Hmm.
our neighbors are impacted
Hmm.
dearly. Just this morning, I spoke with a friend whose daughter is on her way flying home from Israel. Thank God she
Okay.
was not one of the victims. So it's not so far removed. How do
Yeah.
we cope?
And you're so right, Natalie, it's never so far removed. We either know or have a loved one or have seen it in a different time, in a different place in our own lives. I think that one of the most important things is that the medical system in the United States has distilled down our medical care to being defensive. So you go in and need a problem treated, versus preventive, where you're working on your lifestyle every day to to wade off or stay away from certain problems. But also, it's really medication based because medication visits are reimbursed in mental health,
Mhm.
as a psychotherapy. But it's a system that I think really needs to be evolved, but it is what it is. So I think one of the things people need to understand is it's important to see a doctor and get a counselor. One of the things that's often overlooked in mental health treatment is having access to a counselor, because just talking therapy can help ease someone's pain, difficulties, problems with anxiety. But it's also other lifestyle things. I firmly believe in learning a breathwork exercise.
Mhm.
Pranayama yoga, which is breathwork yoga, but a simple, even a box breathing exercise that you can learn online, um, is a way to reset your body, your mind, and your spirit at a certain point. Say you're feeling very anxious, that's a good one. I also think things like exercise. I ask people, especially because I work in mental health, some people are very depressed and they can't move. They don't want to go to the gym. Can they walk their dog? Can they go to get the newspaper? Can they walk to get a cup of coffee? Get them moving, because some form of movement or exercise can actually help with your endorphins, help you feel a little better. 20 minutes on a treadmill, doing a dance class, a Zumba class, something like that can help you. Having a mindfulness practice, whatever that may be to you. It may be for someone a prayer, it may be a yoga or some other form of meditation for someone else, but some mindfulness practice that centers you, that helps you feel grounded, that helps you contain and help yourself through a difficult moment. Even something like hydration.
Mhm.
Keeping hydrated can fend off a low mood and actually fend off anxiety, because dehydration can lead to panic in certain instances, or even a low blood sugar. So making sure that you're eating regularly and you're having healthy whole meals, even if you are an intermittent fast or whatever pattern you follow, but making sure that you're eating whole foods nutritiously is helpful, because a low blood sugar can make you feel anxious. So it's not just one thing, it's the things that I mentioned and more, including good sleep. So all of it matters.
Uh, Dr. Nadu, your first book, which was published a few years ago, is called This Is Your Brain on Food. Um, I am fascinated by it because I have long since believed that food is either medicine or poison, that it's either life
Yes.
giving or
Hmm.
it's deteriorating. And so this book, I I think I dropped it on the floor because I'm always scanning through, I'm always looking
Thank
at
you.
it. And
Yeah.
then you address certain things. You talk about PTSD and, ADD, ADHD, so many issues that we find overwhelming, or we think there's no way to fix it, no way to solve it. But the truth is, our body is telling us something we're putting in
Hmm.
not interacting well with us. Talk
Yes.
about food chemistry. Let's talk about how the chemistry of our bodies and the chemistries of what we put in, just
Hmm.
like drugs, just, whether it's
Yes.
prescribed drugs or um, illicit drugs. Can
Hmm.
we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The first thing I like to ask people, Natalie, is, what happens if you have a headache? Sometimes you have a really severe headache, and it's not the kind that you take a walk, you lay down, and it'll go away. You actually need to take a pill of some kind. So I usually ask people that, and they say, "Well, I'll get a glass of water and I'll take a headache pill." And I say, "Well, that's interesting because the pain is in your head, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, but I always take a pill for it." Well, think about food in the same way. We eat food, we chew food, we digest food, it goes to our stomach. It doesn't only work in the digestive tract or the rest of our body. It doesn't just help us build muscles or gain fat or whatever it might be. It also impacts the brain. And that is because the science around the gut brain connection is hugely important as one of the mechanisms in nutritional psychiatry, meaning that the gut, and the brain are connected. They arise from the exact same cells in the human embryo. Then they divide up to form these two organs. And then these two organs remain connected by a nerve called the vagus nerve, which allows for two-way messaging between these two organ systems. And the messages are usually chemical, like neurotransmitters, things like serotonin. Now, you've heard of a medication like Prozac. It's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, an SSRI. But 90 to 95% of serotonin and serotonin receptors are actually in the gut. So when you start to put those factors together, you realize that we're eating food, it's getting digested. There are trillions of microbes in the gut, which is they're largely contained in the large colon or the large intestine. They're interacting with the foods that we eat. And when you feed them well, Natalie, when you give them a healthy meal, salads and healthy fats like avocado and salmon, good sources of protein, good sources of carbohydrates like some vegetables, they thrive. And when they thrive, your inflammation in the gut subsides, there's no dysbiosis, there's no development of things like leaky gut and other things. But if you are going to the fast food restaurant every day, or you eat candy and chocolate all the time, every day. And that's really what your diet is. Because the standard American diet is called SAD for a reason, because it's high in processed, ultra processed junk foods and fast foods.
Wait a minute, Doc. Did you just say the standard American diet
It's
is
a SAD
called SAD?
for a reason.
I will not.
The acronym is like it is sad, it's a
It's very
reminder.
sad.
But the truth is that that's what, going back to my Pop Tarts days, that was the first time I saw Pop Tart. And I thought, oh, this is so convenient. I can take it to work. And, it took me a little, not too long to fortunately figure out it wasn't good. But at the same time, it's that mindset, isn't it? You don't realize that these are the foods we're consuming. So because we're consuming these foods, and if they're impacting those microbes, there are also bad or negative microbes down there. And if they are fed and they love sugar and they love all the unhealthy ingredients,
Mhm.
they thrive. When they thrive, they upset the balance inside our gut. And that leads to inflammation and conditions like leaky gut. But also, when that type of inflammation gets set up, I see clinically increase in mental health symptoms like anxiety, lack of focus, problems with attention, and more.
Now, the adage of sugar causing hyperactivity, or
Yeah,
it is said that cancers thrive on diets that are high in
and
sugar.
sugar.
Is there true science behind that?
There actually is true science behind that. One of the things we want to do at the outset is understand the types of sugar we consume. So we're not talking about blueberries. We're not talking about, sources of sugar that are from actual food. We are talking about the added processed, ultra processed sugar, the high fructose corn syrup, the additives, the artificial sweeteners, those types of things that are actually just driving the dynamic in the wrong way. Um, there's also things like colorants and dyes, which impact attention in foods, that impact younger children or even as adults. These things can be hugely important. Sugar on its own actually impacts brain cells. So this is not something that people
Mhm.
realize. You can think, well, I'm having a couple of candies, but if that's largely what you eat, if that's the focus of your diet, treats and candies and sugar and cakes all the time. Unfortunately, what you're eating is a lot of sugar. And there has to be the balance where you're getting your fiber and your vegetables and colorful foods with lots of biodiversity to help your gut along.
Now I know, Dr. Naidu, you've done a follow up, or rather, you're doing a follow up to "This Is Your Brain on Food," which I can't wait. Tell us about that book. Tell us what we
Yes.
can expect, and when can we get our hands on
Oh,
it?
thank you. So, my next book called Calm Your Mind with Food. It's got one of my favorite foods on it, which is purple sprouting broccoli, which is a cruciferous vegetable similar to purple cauliflower. So, thank you for asking. Book comes out December 26th of this year. It's available right now for sale wherever books are sold, as well as on my website. But Calm Your Mind with Food is written because what I saw every single day in the pandemic was more and more cases of anxiety, and we need to find a solution. Medication trials have shown, Natalie, that when people take a medication for anxiety, some of them get better, but at least 50% or more never get better, may have some remission, but may have very little remission, may have some improvement, but very little remission. So
Mhm.
we need more solutions. And going back to the sad diet, the pandemic didn't help us with what we were eating because there were so many fears that we faced with supermarket shelves being empty and access to food being a fear for many of us, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, that people stocked up on those shelf stable unhealthy foods because it was necessary. But now it's time to walk ourselves back from that. It's not the only reason that anxiety is increased, but it's one of the reasons. And I feel it's one reason where we can intervene. And that was really the purpose of bringing this book forward, to put information, as many people have said to me, they look on the internet for information about anxiety. What can they eat or what can they do? And they're searching in different places. And what this book does is takes the recent science, puts it in one place, and then walks you through what you should get at the supermarket, walks you through a protocol. Literally, you can set up your week on how to build in these meals, and then followed by a chapter of recipes to help you create those meals. And the recipes are ones that you can substitute. You can put tofu instead of chicken. You can put beef instead of something else. It's meant to be flexible to embrace all diets as well.
And I love, your starting point is food autonomy, people getting
Yes,
to choose what they want. It
what they
is
eat.
not a one size fits all, it is not an absolute situation. It's having a balanced diet, maybe trying to avoid the sad way of eating.
Right. Yes.
And then we'll have glad hearts.
Yes, that's a great one. I'm
You know,
going to use that.
that diet gives you a sad heart. So let's get more cruciferous vegetables in. I am a lover of the purple cauliflower. I love cauliflower anyway. So,
I
put an
do
air
love it.
fryer in
Yes.
it, it gets even more fun. Dr. Naidu, it is such a pleasure talking with you. This is the first of many conversations we hope to have with you. We hope to have
Thank
you on
you.
site at our retreats because we really want to explore food and our mood and how we can make healthy choices and eat more of a glad diet versus a sad diet. Thank
I
you
love
so
that.
much.
Thank you.
Remember, check out Dr. Uma Naidu at umanaidu.com. And you'll be able to find all her resources available there. Her books are on Amazon. My favorite for now is "This Is Your Brain on Food." It's always at my fingertip. I also
Okay.
have it electronically. And then we have "Calm Your Mind with Your Food" coming up December 26th. So it is a great holiday gift. If you're thinking about me, feel free to buy me a few copies and send them over. I'll have one in my briefcase, one in the car,
Thank you.
one at my bedside. Thank you so much. We so look forward. How can we stay in touch with you, Dr. Naidu?
Thank you so much, Natalie. It was always lovely to talk with you. Follow me on social media. Sign up for my newsletter. Every week, I send you an educational newsletter with food, how to use it, how to cook it, and facts behind it. So, what's the science behind it? And you can sign up at umanaidumd.com, and social media, right as you can see, at DRUMANAIDOO. And my website also has courses and a way to buy the book. When you buy the book, you actually get my course built in. So the book will come to you in December when it is ready to be published. But you, in the meantime, get a free chapter as well as some resources that can help you on your anxiety journey until you actually get the book in your hands, including the course.
Excellent. So, how about a very nutritious way to approach combating anxiety. I'm all for that. I do not think drugs are the answer. Thank you so much, Dr. Naidu. It is a
Yes.
pleasure having you. We look forward to seeing you soon. Ladies and
Thanks
gentlemen,
so
we've
much.
been talking with Dr. Uma Naidu. Not only is she a nutritional psychiatrist, she is an author, she is a chef, and a beautiful soul. Well, I was so excited at the top of the show. I forgot to tell you today's episode and everything this fall season is brought to you courtesy of Diageo North America. Thank you, Diageo. And remember, drink IQ is very important. We want to drink responsibly. Well, I'm kind of hanging out today. You see the shoulder and all that sexy swankiness. Yep. And all the glitter and spanks. And I'm going to, yeah, all that fabulous. Thank you, Hope Wade. You have been popping with the fashions, and I am loving the looks. I'm appreciating it. Check out our social media for more details on how you too can look glittery, fabulous, and shimmery by Hope Wade. You've been watching Living Life Authentically. I'm Natalie B. McKenzie. I've got so much to share with you. Remember, sign up for our newsletter and get ready, get ready, get ready. Guess what's coming? Our annual fundraiser and toy drive will be on December 3rd. Much more to share on that. Tickets will be available soon. I wish you enough life to live, enough joy to